Episode 60 of Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. That's right. It's episode 60. I'm Mike Mylan, also known as Cashflow Mike, and that is Blaine Birch, the CEO of Dry Run. What's up, my man?
I'm excited because again we've this is a milestone. It's another round number. I usually don't get that big on numbers, but 60, that's a nice big number. I'm not going to introduce this quite yet, except that that's why I picked shiny things today, because it's the big 6-0. So it feels like a little celebration is due today.
Got it. You're going shiny things. Okay, I like the can't see. I'm a sucker for simplicity, right? For something that's simple like that. So I like that. But let me tell you about Roughhouse Brewing, right? That is my October sponsor. I've got 4 beers a whole month. The whole month of October is sponsored by them, and I am so excited. Remember last week they have an artist actually draw,
Nice.
actually draw their logos, their cans, their designs. But look at all the detail on these things.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
it's absolutely crazy, and it's a Pecan Praline Bock. Right, so
Nice.
this is an October beer, if there ever was one, right there. So Roughhouse Brewing, my sponsor for the month of October. They're right here in Texas, San Marco. I met Alex in person, and what a wonderful lady, man! I'm telling you, she's fantastic. So let's give this a try.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember last time you were talking about like they do, which I thought was really interesting. They literally grow the ingredients and make the beer on the same farm. It's just like farm to table is all except for beer, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, you know what? She was telling me the process of choosing the yeast, right? And how they have to sift through it because some of them won't smell as good. That there's a particular smell they're looking for. There's some of them might have a different type of spore or mold to it that they don't like. So they're very particular, very much attached to a characteristic of a yeast that goes right into here. And man, I'm gonna tell you what, this is like candy in a can. I like it.
Nice, nice. I'm one of these days I'm going to get Roughhouse. I don't think I'll get it up here in Edmonton, but I will dig around on them down the States. So my shiny things, I agree. I'm a can for a sucker, or a sucker for a can. I swear I haven't had that much yet. And I love these nice and clean, simple ones, but also love these ones that are like done by artists that have just like, I've had so many of those too that I just like, oh man, I got to get that can, and it suckers me into getting the beer. But this is Shiny Things from Steel and Oak in New Westminster, BC, British Columbia for you Americans, which is basically a part of Vancouver. So if you're in New Westminster, don't get on and complain if I said, well, you're part of Vancouver, but basically it's all kind of attached. So, or close enough. That's where these guys are. And this is just a really nice Indian Pale Ale. So good job, Steel and Oak.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Hey, and let me just give a plug for our main sponsor, right? Our episode sponsor. Again, from now all the way through Christmas, you have to go check this out. mylifeinthebook.com. And when you do, use promo code NOBODY. It is the coolest, best way to memorialize and capture all of your family's memoirs or memories. So what do you think, man?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And we're going to be talking about them a little later in the show with a lot more detail, so you know exactly what they're about. Really just terrific product, terrific service. Just love it.
All right, so today's topic, if you didn't see the headline, you're joining live, you're not doing this recorded. We are going to be talking about Reid Hoffman. And this is, Reid Hoffman. I mean, actually, Blaine kind of introduced me who that was, and I'll let him kind of talk about it. But the quote is this. If you're not embarrassed by your first version of your product, then you've launched too late, right? And we kind of shorten it to, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, or no, you should be embarrassed by your first product. That's what I think.
Or you're launching too late, which, like I don't embarrass easy, but we just launched both feet on this podcast. We didn't think that much about it. And it really comes into a bit of the launch and learn idea. I'll admit, I looked it up because I'm like, man, that name is so familiar. And I looked it up, and it was a co-founder of LinkedIn. And of course we spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and terrific service. I think one of my other quotes might be from Reid Hoffman, but I actually have to look it up. And it sort of connects. So I'm gonna sneak it out here. I believe it was him or maybe his co-founder at LinkedIn that paraphrasing something about it. A startup is like jumping off a cliff and building the airplane on the way down. And I always thought that was such a terrific, suitable quote. But it does kind of connect with this: is you just got to get going. You can't wait and build this precious thing, hoping you're right the first time.
Well, I think that's true with this podcast. I mean, think about that. We could have put in all of the planning effort, built a business plan, come up with a marketing plan, did all these types of things. And although I'm not embarrassed about what we did, I think we would have been too late. I think we're hitting it at the right stride where people are really interested in, hey, I'm running a business now, because there was that mass exodus of people, right? The Great Resignation, where people were leaving corporate America and building their own business. So I think there's a big influence or a big influx of people that are trying to figure this small business thing out.
Yeah, and it's there's only kind of one way to do it. You have to like launch and learn. Another really common phrase. It's true. Like when I started Dry Run, and like my first business was an agency. It's different. We got kind of clients, and we're profitable almost the day we open our doors. But building a product like this is different. It's you learn a lot, and you hear all these things at the start, but you understand them as you've gone through. And one of the big things you understand is one of the hard learnings is when you've put a lot of time and energy and you're building something, and you didn't really validate, you didn't really test it. So you didn't put it out ugly. You didn't do the minimum viable product sort of idea, where viable is really important, by the way, but you didn't get it out and learn. And I know you're like me. There's times where I've sat back and looked and went, we spent a lot of money and a lot of time on this one part, and nobody cares. Nobody wants it.
Yeah, nobody cares. That's why you have the minimum viable product, right? You get out there and you let the market help you evolve the product to what they want, right? So what you're establishing is just a core foundation for your business, right? This is the bare minimum that I'm trying to do. How can I make it better? How can I match the market's anticipation of my service or product?
Yeah. And it's viable is one of the things that man, it's almost like you can make a mistake either way. You overbuild because you think you're so smart, which I've, done before. And then you find out, that whole part nobody cares about, or we did it wrong. They love it, but we didn't execute it the right way. And we have to rebuild it basically. Right. But the other side of it is just get something out. And then, well, nobody seems to be adopting, nobody seems to be paying for it. Yeah, but you didn't reach the viable part. You didn't get far enough along that it really truly solves a problem, because no one wants to come in and kind of be your guinea pig and kind of find out if you're going to be valuable later.
All right. So they ever tell the story of how I got into hotel staffing? Right.
I'm sure you have, but let's refresh. And I don't know if you've said it on the show before.
And here's the thing, because I didn't realize it till just now when you were talking, and I want people to realize that, we're talking about products, but this was a service. And I think you can apply this to both. And I'm going to try to apply it to both, because if I can't, you're going to call me out.
All right.
But here was, you got to remember, I left the highway patrol to become a janitor. Nobody does that, right? So, but I did, because that's what I could do, right? I'd been in the Army, I'd been in the Highway Patrol Academy. I mean, I thought, well, if anything in the world I can do is clean. That's about the only skill I got. I can keep things clean. So, but so I built a janitorial company, and I'm cleaning, like the cable office in town, and I'm cleaning some doctors' offices, and I got my first big account, University of Missouri, and I remember one night. You got to remember, I'd only been out of the highway patrol for maybe 6 months. I'd only been out. So, and so I still had that mentality. I've done it for 7 years. You got to realize now I'm on a college campus, And I'm trying to learn janitorial at the commercial scale, which means I had 20 janitors in 9 buildings across the campus at the University of Missouri.
Yeah.
Well, in order to understand it, guess what you got to do? You got to do it. So I'm in a college men's restroom, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I've got this pumice stick, right, trying to get the stuff out of the urinals. It's just gross. These 2 guys come in, right? They whatever, staying late, studying, whatever they're doing. They come in, they see me doing that, and they go, if you just went to college, you wouldn't have to clean urinals. And here I am, an MBA, a former state trooper, a captain in the Army, and they're talking right behind me, and I'm like going, I tripled my salary from highway patrol to be the highest paid janitor in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm just doing it to learn, but I mean, here they are making fun of me. So it was a humbling experience too, because in my mind, I'm like going, I used to put little guys like you in jail. And now you're making fun of me? No wonder I did that. But here's what happened. So I was in the janitorial business, and I had a friend. Now realize when you do janitorial work, you get to have to do janitorial work. You empty the trash, you mop the floors, you clean the urinals. I had a friend says, because I went to him and said, hey, you want to contract out your cleaning to me? He says, no. He says, but I'm having trouble hiring people, and it seems like you don't have a problem doing that. Can you provide that service? Just find some people that will come in and clean rooms, And I'm like going, you mean I don't have to do the work? He goes, no, nice. I got managers that do that. You just give me people, bodies. I'm like going, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's how my janitorial company became a hotel staffing company.
Yeah.
Right. That, it's like, going, I don't have to do the work. All I got to do is find people. And I was already trying to find people anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I'm saying with this, how it connects back to the topic, is that there was my minimum viable product, which was I had a hotel that needed people. I'm like, well, if he needs people, maybe all the other hotels need people.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just provide a service just doing people. But out the door, I was embarrassed of my product because I'm just sending over janitors. I didn't have a good, training process. I didn't have a good way to introduce my employees to a hotel standard of dealing with customers and those type of things. Because janitors most time by themselves don't have to deal with customers on a face-to-face basis. They're just kind of do it. Well, I'm embarrassed now looking back, what the hotel staffing company became. I'm embarrassed, like, oh man, I really did him a disservice. I just thrown bodies at him. But what it became, I was really proud of.
Well, and there's really no useful way to learn that otherwise. Because if you had sat down and he said, I need bodies, can you bring them to me? Well, he was obviously happy with that because he needed them. Can you imagine if you said, yes, I can. Give me 6 months and I'm going to come up with the systems and the processes. And then you go back and you try and come up with a bunch of systems and processes process. See, I'm trying my best. And you come up with
almost clapped.
I'm working my way into it. If you came up with those, you'd be coming up with them probably from the janitorial perspective, your experience on campus. And you'd be like, well, let's figure all this stuff out. You haven't had experiences in the hotels yet. And by the time you get in there, you likely find out that's not actually the training they need. They need all this different stuff. So again, it's like, just get in there, learn from them. Even if your first client is kind of like, you guys suck, get out of here. It's like, what you take away is, yeah, I know how to nail the next one. And I can do it in week 3, not in month 10, right?
Well, that's exactly right. If I would have waited, hey, give me 6 months to get this set up, he would have solved the problem with another vendor, another person, another way. He can't just say, well, we can't take on reservations and clean your room until we get people.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no COVID then where they didn't have to clean your room.
Yeah.
I'm making fun of hotels on that one. Oh, sorry, we don't do housekeeping anymore.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, but That's exactly right. I would have missed the window. I took advantage of an opportunity. I made a quick decision. Even though it wasn't the product that I ended up selling 3 years later,
Yeah.
it was the start, right? It was like going, I put something out there. I had a framework to hire people. He needed people. I'm like, okay, here you go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm saying, but you can't go to the Ritz-Carlton. You can't go to the Boulders in Colorado, I think up there where you live, or the Fairmont Princess, or any of those, or TPC, that type of stuff. With what I gave my friend, I had to have a process. I had to have, the training built around it. I had to be able to speak the same language. So you're right.
Well, that's interesting, because we used to, like, even in my agency days, there were times where we were kind of rolling out a new service. We'd just be like, this seems useful. This seems like an area where there's something we can build on. And it's usually something based on technology that not many people were doing. And we were messing with touch screens and stuff before iPhones, before that stuff was around. And but what we would do is we would kind of go, okay, well, here's our prospects that we think are really good that we're going to go after. And we would just immediately classify them into A and B. Of course, wouldn't tell them that. But guess who we would go talk with first? Be like, hey. Go talk with the Bs. Go talk with the Bs, because what it was, they're usually like the ones who are a little bit less likely, or a little bit maybe not sort of the perfect fit. But what we could do is we go in and you kind of learn from them. What are they concerned about? What are their interests? And then when we go to the A, it's like we're coming in, here's our PowerPoints, our portfolio, or whatever. And it's like, we got this dialed down. And that was just to land the job, right?
I would do the same thing as a sales manager early on, like going, the new guys coming in, I wouldn't give them
no.
the creme de la creme. I'm like, no, you guys cut your teeth down here, make some mistakes. It's okay if we don't get that business, we're not worried about it. But sometimes you only get one chance at this A level. So now I get you saying, yeah.
And like when my first sort of foray into dry run was, when I hear startups saying they're in stealth mode, it just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand. I'm like, nah, man, they don't. Like, there's some that have to be, but boy, that's a rarity. They think that they're doing something so amazing. What that tells me is, if you're in stealth mode, you probably haven't talked with anybody. And the hardest part is getting someone to give a shit. It's not getting them to hiding my secret because everybody wants my idea so bad. It's, you have to execute faster and better than everybody else. And you need to talk with your potential customers about that. And I remember back in my dry run days, I always say, the first thing I did when I had this idea was cost me 50 beer and 50 cups of coffee. I was going to meet with every bloody business owner, entrepreneur, everybody I knew. And the first few meetings were just kind of here's do you have a problem with it? Da, da, da. And then after a few meetings, I'd have my laptop and I'd be like, yeah, here's this little wireframe. And then a little while later, it's like, here's this little PowerPoint. And because I was gathering info and I was trying to validate those things, right? And that was so helpful, because you're kind of doing almost these little prototypes to try and figure out before you start dedicating all this time, energy, and money. And I still look at that and go, I could have gone deeper, and I could have gone wider on the people I was talking with, because I had some big gaps that now I look back and go, head slapping kind of stuff. But I also look back and go, that was super valuable. The amount of information I got over, what was it, a couple $100 in coffee and beer, right?
Yeah. Wait, what's funny to me? Was there a point in time that you were embarrassed as you kind of evolved? Because when we built the first Finograph dashboard, it was just a wall of numbers, right? That compared you to industry and flagged or not flagged. And there's nothing really special about it, but it's really functional.
Yeah. As
we have grew in the market and our name got bigger, and then we put cash flow tool on the market. Well, Finograph didn't look that great, the original dashboard. Yep. And there were times when I would show it to people, I'm like, I'm a little embarrassed to show you this, but it does a better job than most others, and it's free. Yeah. So, so it's one of those things where I can now, take his quote, about being embarrassed about your first version. I'm like going, yeah, I'm a little embarrassed now.
Yeah. And yeah, numerous, like all through sort of our history, I can look at that and think about times. And at the time, it's just, I was so desperate, got to get this out, got to learn, got to get this out. And then I look back and go, oh, geez, that like the very first prototype, just me, myself, and I threw together was like now just, it honestly is kind of embarrassing. The amazing thing is we still have some customers that, and I wasn't even trying to get customers. All I wanted to do is validate someone's going to pay a few bucks for this. And years later, they're still with us. Like, holy crap. Like you guys were using something that was barely, it didn't do anything. Like it was barely over a PowerPoint. And, but like I can think back to, different steps, right? And different times where all of a sudden I'd wake up and go, like, I remember going like, yeah, our website is not, it's not communicating. And it's sort of got, I always call it duct tape and chicken wire, where it started out nice and clean, but you keep adapting and adjusting. And pretty soon it's like, oh my God, this is a mess. Time to, and I don't even want people to see it. Time to move on. Right. And redo it. But it's just a constant, like the stuff we're doing now, I'll bet you a couple of years down the road, I'm like, man, we should have had this and blah, blah, blah. And it's so much better now.
Yeah. And we used to call that spaghetti code because, you start out writing the code and it's in this perfect line. Everything is right there. And all of a sudden, oh, well, we need to fix this and then fix this. And all of a sudden it's like a bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah.
We start following the flow. It's like
yeah. And that's just how it is. There's no way around it.
Yeah. So, all right. So what was funny about that is that I think that's real. And we actually did this. Courtney and I did this the other day, just as a fun experiment. There's a site out there called the Wayback Machine. Have you ever seen that? Nope. It archives websites over time and all the changes you make. So when you think you're being all stealth and all that, I can go back to 2 months ago and see what it looked like. I challenge anybody right now to go to the Wayback Machine, put in your website and go look at what it was a year ago, 10 years ago, however long it's been, and then just kind of laugh to yourself, right? Like, oh my God, that's what I looked like 5 years ago, right? It's this thing called the Wayback Machine, and it's funny as hell, right? To be able to go back and see it, like, going, oh my God, that's what I look like. Because they take snapshots of every website that goes out there.
Oh man, I'm going to go check that out because I just partly just a little bit of nostalgia, but the interesting thing is the odd time in the last number of years, I've stumbled upon a website that we actually developed in my agency days, and the most disappointing time at times was when it hasn't been up, like they haven't redone it, and I'm like, oh man, and I'm kind of like, oh, gee, that looks awful. It was awesome at the time, but the technology has moved so far forward. And so then when I sometimes see websites that have been like completely redone, you think I'd be more like possessed or whatever, but I'm like, oh, thank God, because you cannot stick with what we did. It was great at the time, but man, it's embarrassing now kind of thing. Right. So it's, time is a big part of that. Right.
So here's a credit to Roughhouse Brewery. I opened the second beer before the commercial break. Normally I don't do that. Normally I don't, but that's a credit to the beer. It really tastes good.
That's good stuff, man.
Hey, can I throw an Easter egg in here just to see if he's listening?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I got involved with this group text. All right. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan. Right, to get group text because all of a sudden you get all these notifications when people are doing their thing, and I'm like, it's distracting to me. So I'm not a fan of group text. Yeah, but this one only has 3 people in it, so it's a little bit more manageable. So I haven't left the group. Mike has left the group, so I stayed in, and mainly because one is my best friend, the other one is my son-in-law. Yeah. Right. And they go back and forth on sports, right? Seahawks this, Tampa Bay Bucks that, Chiefs that, that's kind of our, only because it's football season right now. Yeah. Well, last week, those two bet on something I wasn't even paying attention, but it was like 15 text messages in a row, and my phone was just going ding, 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 ding. So I know that they bet. My son-in-law and them asked something about Venmo, right? Send your Venmo so I can pay you. So I can pay you. That's the text I saw. Send your Venmo so I can pay you. So Shane, my best friend, I sent him a Venmo to pay me. I wasn't even part of the bet. I wasn't even part of the bet. I'm like on Venmo and just send him a request for $20 because that's what the bet was.
Yeah.
Well, that happened like we'll say last week. Well, 2 nights ago he paid me.
Oh no.
So I haven't told him yet. I haven't even acknowledged that I got paid. I haven't even acknowledged that I wasn't part of the bet. So I'm thinking if there's a way to put an Easter egg out there, because he says, "Oh, I listen to your podcast." Well, if you want your $20 back, text me after you hear this and say, "Mike, I need my $20 back."
And then what you can do is send them the "Nobody Told Me" T-shirt that you used his money on to buy and send it.
Well, you know what's funny is that he's the one that bought the first Just Giving Her T-shirt.
Oh, okay. No, then okay. Nope. Thank you for doing that, and we will not be doing using your 20. Send him his $20 back. The guy bought merch.
He actually bought the first Just Giving Her T-shirt, and remember I showed you the picture of his son wearing it.
Yep. Yeah. No, I did not make the connection there. So
he doesn't have one. He doesn't have one. So
yeah,
maybe it's okay too. But isn't that funny? So that's the Easter egg in this episode is Shane, if you're listening,
see if you're
$20 back.
See if your phone lights up in the next couple minutes here. So
that's right. I think that's funny as hell.
Well, man, like we could do a whole show on due diligence.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, attention to detail.
Yep, attention to detail. Exactly.
Detail. Yep. So, hey, speaking of attention to detail, by the way, today's episode is sponsored by MyLifeInABook.com, and this is probably the most thoughtful gift I've ever come across. For parents, it's for grandparents, it's for your aunts, your uncles. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter the occasion. I mean, it could be for their birthday, for Christmas, for anything. It's basically a very powerful way to connect emotionally with everyone in your life. You can preserve their most precious memories and show them that you really care. Best of all, it's instantaneous. You can even get it at the last minute.
And this is the cool part. Every week, My Life in a Book lets you choose from a list of thought-provoking questions, or even write your own question, which gets sent to your relative by email. Your relative writes their answer, and they can even choose to add a meaningful picture. This happens every week, and at the end of 1 year, all their stories get combined in a beautiful keepsake book that you can store your relatives' memories forever and pass them on to future generations, which are printed and sent to you. So it's easy. It makes it easy for everybody and so executable. I don't know if that's even a word, but it's awesome.
Hey, easy, simple, and you get to keep the book. It's a hardback book, and you can request as many copies as you want. Believe it or not, I just found out, and I know we've been saying it, but it just hit me. You can get it in audio form as well. So with MyLifeInABook.com, you can give those you love a personal gift that tells them that they're meaningful to you and all future generations. Imagine to be able to tell that story. You know how stories get washed away? It doesn't here. It gets told in their words, their message, and passed down to your generation. So to save $10 off your first purchase, go to MyLifeInABook.com and use the discount code NOBODY at checkout. That's MyLifeInABook.com and use the code NOBODY to get $10 off your first purchase. Nobody is us. Nobody told me with Mike and Blaine.
Yeah, for sure. And it's something that sort of dawned on me a little bit here is it's sort of the idea of oral history, right? That it's easy now because with social media and everything digital to think that all of these things, everything is recorded, but it really isn't. Like when you look at it, it's the same kind of stuff, and it's not necessarily valuable stuff like that's on TikTok and Instagram and everything else. What's getting lost are these stories, and the stories, like grandparents likely maybe aren't on there. And if they are, they're not sharing the stories that are so interesting about their youth. That's not what they're talking about on social media. They're saying, hey, happy birthday and da 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 da. Here's an opportunity to save those. Otherwise, because I know even with my family, the only time I hear some of these stories a lot of times are from like my cousins that are talking about my grandparents. And my cousins a lot of them are my age and older. Well, that's going to start disappearing too. So this is the time, not they're going to die, just you don't hear the stories, stories start to fade after a while. This is the time to be able to get those stories while you can.
Well, and like I said, it is recorded. I mean, right now we can record everything. There's no context, there's no organization, and it's all bite-sized, consumable chunks. That's the way we do information. But it leaves out the context. It leaves out the rich details that we really need to connect. Oh, that's why she did this, or that's why those two are together, or they know each other, right? It leaves out some of the questions that are always unanswered. This is a way to get it done.
Yeah, yeah. If someone came to me a bunch of years down the road, I'm hoping my memory is good enough to remember. So I think back at Dry Run, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me the story of Dry Run? Yeah, I can tell me the story of Dry Run, but I'm like, man, there is a lot of things that are probably just kind of lost. And that's why the Wayback Machine thing, I'm like, I got to look at that, because I bet you there's things I can't even remember that were there. And it's kind of neat to see that. That's, that history is important.
What's funny is I'm using this podcast as kind of a recollection of stories, right? So I just tell them, that's another way. I mean, I love this product, but my business life, I can at least tell the stories here and people can hear it.
Yeah, exactly. It's someday you can just say, you package this up. I was going to say on DVD, but that makes no sense. Package it up and give it to your kids and go, here you go. here's nobody told me the entire library.
Apple's already packaged it for them. All they got to do is subscribe. Just like you guys. If you're listening to this and you like it, go to Apple, go to Google, go wherever you get your podcasts. I guess Overcast is a thing too, right? I mean, we just found that out. That's one of our largest. Yeah.
There's a bunch of people downloading on. Yeah, and Spotify, everything, and there's a couple there I hadn't even heard of, and had a whole bunch of downloads. I'm like, that's super cool. Go subscribe there, and even you can go to YouTube. You can go to YouTube and subscribe there as well, and you can see our ugly mugs sitting up on the screen. But you can also see the cool cans that I keep talking about that we're showing. We talk about them, but then I just realized you probably you have to go see the video to see these cool cans.
So. Let's get back to the topic.
Okay.
Before I say that, if you're a sponsor out there and you just heard how we promote our people, you should love that. You should love that. So,
especially for Blaine and beer, because Mike's got a brewery sponsoring him for a month. You can come and buy me some beer, and I will promote the heck out of you. You don't have to buy me beer; like literally, just deliver me some of your beer, and I'll promote it for a month. So. That'd be kind of fun.
All right. So Alex, if you want a second month, just call me.
I'm a little further away, but I'll be closer in a few weeks down in Scottsdale area, so it won't be too far.
There you go. All right. So back to being embarrassed. Is there a product? Is it Dry Run maybe that you can look back now and go, yeah, if I was to give that to somebody now, knowing what I know, knowing what we became, I'm a little embarrassed of what we did.
Yeah, for sure. Because, as a creator of anything, it's, like I've been a designer by trade. I still build and create all kinds of things. And I make skateboards, I make knives, I make all kinds of stuff because I love making things, right? And the first bunch were awful. Like I look at them and I cringe. Other people think they're cool, but you're your own worst critic, right? And that's the same with Dry Run. If I go back and look, I know like the first versions, it's like every version after a while is going to be kind of embarrassing, because you're going to be like, oh, we've made it so much better. And then 6 months later, oh, we made it so much better and so much more intuitive. And then 6 months later. And so it's hard, especially as a designer, not to feel that way. But then sometimes you get customers come in and they'll gush about it, and it's like, okay, that's really cool. They really like what we did.
All right, so you know about this program called the Clear Path to Cash, right? And it's something I've done for years. We're talking, 7-10 years or so. Well, in the beginning, it was the same program year after year after year, and I even had clients that would come in, and because they were sponsors, they could become kind of coaches, and they had their old books from like 2 years ago that they still just kept, and they didn't take new notes because it was the same.
Yeah.
Well, the last year I redid everything. I mean,
yeah.
The way I teach, I mean, because you take all these lessons learned and like going, I'm going to redo from top to bottom, the way it looks, the way I present it, the way, everything about everything is redone.
Yeah.
So in a joking fashion, my client comes to me just this last week and goes, did you do that so we'd have to buy new books? I'm like, she goes, I love it. I love everything about it. It's so much better. It's so much more modern, up to date, all those things. But, did you do that so we had to buy a new book?
Oh, like, I'll be honest with you. Like my first book, Pandemic Cash Flow, first of all, it was called Pandemic Cash Flow before there was a pandemic. So the pandemic kind of screwed the name of my book, which kind of sucks because everyone thinks it's related to the pandemic. But that book, I look at and I keep thinking, oh man, I'd like to rewrite that. Like I just like, I know so much more, and I could rewrite it and I could write it better. And but at the time, it was just like, I got to get this message out here. Business owners are struggling with these concepts. I just got to give them something to hang on to. And so I've thought a few times of, I should rewrite it. And then I finally realized, no, it's good for what it is. I'm starting another book. So I'm actually got another book in the works right now. I don't even tell you if I told you that, but I'm actually got another book going. So
let me ask you, if you're like me, is it hard to read your own book?
Oh, painful. And it's also, it's hard to watch this. Like I don't watch Nobody Told Me After and listen to it, because I'm like, I sound like an idiot. And other people might think that, but they're listening to it, so whatever, who cares? They can decide that if they want.
Yeah, it's just hard. And I'm like going, oh my God, I hate this chapter. I actually worked on writing 2 new chapters. I hated those words. So I'm not going to change the book.
It's hard. It is. It's so hard. And you always hear about actors that can't watch the shows that they've been in. It's the same sort of thing. Like, it's the things you've written, the things you've done. It's your own worst critic. You see every little thing that's wrong with it, right?
I had a client last week buy 125 books, and she said she didn't buy enough. And she goes, I love it, every page of it. And I'm like going, well, I'm glad you can read it. She said she hadn't read a book in 7 years. And I'm like going, and you chose a math book to break your streak?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I should even show you this, but here's something that I'm embarrassed about. It's right beside me here, and I just looked at it and thought about it. So I just mentioned that I make knives just for something to do, not for something to do. It's good. It's good to get away from work and get away from business, right? So this is one that I've got here.
The handle, good to start with the handle.
Here's the knife, and it's fine. It's cool. It's a cool knife. But I did this whole thing, and then I realized this is left-handed.
So, all right. So you didn't make a left-handed knife. You made a left-handed sheath.
Left-handed sheath that it's probably like, just kind of up. It probably had YouTube on something and wasn't paying attention. And I don't know how long it was till Allison realized, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, so now I really have to find someone that's left-handed. So I gotta give this and make it justify. Like, yeah, I made it for this guy that's left-handed, right?
Shane Velez, you're left-handed. So, but anyway,
Shane, you got a knife coming your way.
I'm really testing whether or not he listens, because he talks about it. I'm really testing. So, but man, I tell you, have you ever, because it happens to me, I'll try to put something together and I'll put a piece backwards when I'm looking at the instructions. Like we'll say an IKEA thing.
Yeah.
And I'll put together backwards or upside down, and I got to take it all apart and do it all back together again. I'm like, man, I build furniture in the garage. How come I can't put together this IKEA the right way?
I know why, because it's if you look at someone that ever gets like hits their thumb with a nail, like a hammer, or like cuts themselves with a saw or something, a lot of times it's actually people that are fairly experienced, because so experienced are really not paying attention, right? And like literally, if you brought a piece of IKEA furniture in here, I would glance at the instructions, but honestly, I'd probably be like, in the back of my mind, and this is, I hate to say this about myself, but I know I'm like, yeah, I probably know better than IKEA. I'll put this together without it. I know how these parts go together. I know how this works. And then you inevitably have this part left at the end and go, yeah, I wonder what this is for. It seems kind of important, right?
Yeah, these extras in case I lose them.
Yeah, exactly. And when you push on it, it moves a lot,
Yeah, but here's the thing: you're like going, it shouldn't work both ways. I shouldn't be able to put this together upside down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. All right. So let me ask you this. All right.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time when you should wait? Right? Because this is what you and I have always done. We've taken a quote and we've dissected it. And believe it or not, I actually agree with this one. Sometimes I don't agree, or we can find a reason where it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Now I'm asking you, is there a time where this doesn't fit?
Yeah, there have been quotes that that I thought was terrific, and by the end of the episode, we're like, I don't know if I totally agree with it. This one, I think it's the reason I agree with it is because I think it's the most human thing to do. Is you're nervous. You don't want to be rejected, so you want to do something that's perfect. And I think it's like the 90% are going to overthink things and overdo things. So it's sort of like chronic problem. But it does come back to determining where that point is, where, like I said, the MVP, it's the V that oftentimes is important. If it's not viable, if it's not good enough, you're going to get false data. You literally could have a bunch of data coming back that no, this is the market doesn't want this, and not realizing that, yeah, you know what, you just didn't quite get there. You didn't tip it over the line. You got close, and they're kind of interested, but it's tipping it over where they want to use it. It's just that you're trying to engineer all of it first and do it perfect the first time.
Well, I'll tell you, I think for me, there was a time when I rushed, right? I rushed to get it out, and we had MVP, but it really wasn't. I didn't know if that was the right MVP. Yep. The product did what I wanted it to do, but was that the way to do it? Mm-hmm. And that was in the last company I was with. There was some pressure from the CEO and from the stockholders to get something out the door by a specific date, which is by far the worst position to be in. Yeah. Do X by X date. You're like, well, hey, we need 60 more days. We need 90 more days, whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, and I can see that it's you're setting, you can be setting yourself up for failure. Like you can be set up for failure either way, which is that's the tragic part. That's the difficult part, is to make the determination of when you get it out. It's like there's a sweet spot, right? There's this part where it's like, it is not ready. No one's going to want it. No one's going to buy it. And you're going to get false negatives. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it. And then you get to the point where there's this whole middle ground where it's like, that's your minimum viable product. People will use it. You're solving a problem. They'll pay for it. And you think it's ugly and it doesn't do everything you want. And then you get to the point where it's like, here's all the other stuff you could have built, but could throw away because you're building stuff that nobody wants because you didn't get the feedback. So you have to make a judgment call. Where's that middle ground there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think the first threshold is you have to solve somebody's problem first.
Yeah.
Then you can add in the extras, and that, and that I've been guilty of that. Is I want the robust like platform rather than the robust feature.
Yeah.
Sometimes the feature is the first product. I can
Yeah.
do X, right? I can
Yeah.
just do one thing and I'm the best at it and it's fantastic and it saves your time, your money, your energy, all those things. And then we build out all the features around it. But you have to go through the pain of people like going, that's all it does. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
We're doing great.
Yeah. We still struggle with that of making, it's all about priorities, right? Prioritizing and saying that entire feature set can come later, and the true problem we solve, or the true friction point, is actually over here. It's solve this and we have nailed 90% of it, and people are getting distracted over here, and it's there, oh, we really could use this. Yeah, but why are they saying that? Are they missing this main part? Have we not done that well enough? And it's always a real kind of judgment call. But the big thing is talking. Again, it goes all the way back to talk with your clients and see how they use it, and learn as much as you can, and from more than one, right? Because one person, like we honestly had one today, and we're like, somebody came in and they kind of were complaining about something they thought was a missing feature, and we're like, I'll be honest with you, we're kind of like, what are you doing? Like, it was so left field and so weird, and we're like, man, like, you do it this way and it'll just work. It's going to work amazingly well. But they had a hang up, and it was, and if that was the only person we talked with, we would be going right down the wrong path. We talk with so many people, we realize that's the outlier. That is kind of weird.
Yeah, but I also call that the two more theory, which is you might have 5 years on your product. You've been doing everything, just adding, improving.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Every customer at every phase, they always say, oh, this is great, but it'd be awesome if it had 2 more features.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're never the same, right? You talk to 2 customers and there's 2 more features, not the same ones.
Yeah. And it was probably top of mind for them that day, right? Like recency bias. They had needed it now. And we have to stick with our guns and go, this is the main problem we're solving for you. And if we're not doing it well enough, we have to do it better and make sure we're really solving that problem.
So do you think it's a mindset problem from builders? All right. Meaning we want to be the product, not the add-in. Right. Because think about it, right? Maybe I'm a good add-in. I'm not a great product.
Explain that further.
Let's say I'm good at some type of functionality. I can do cash flow forecasting better than anybody else, but standalone, and I'm not calling you out on this. I'm just saying I'm using you as an example. Standalone, I'm just okay. But if I was an add-in for Excel, if I was an add-in for Google Sheets, I'd be fantastic.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's like, I don't see ourselves as an add-on. I see ourselves like as a partner, but
now you're not.
Now we're not. But it is a good example. Yeah, like it is a good example that early on, like I said, like we were barely above a PowerPoint, like it didn't do much, and it was all manual, and is the first step into actually a partner with an accounting software, was also like, oh my God, we carry all this load for people and we make it so much easier, and now it becomes this real sort of partnership, and it's really important. And we are way better. We are so much better when we're working with our partners and all of this data is coming in than when we were this complete standalone in the corner where you just had to use it. And we still have customers that do it that way. You have to launch early and learn from your customers. And a huge part of that is going to be you're launching really early and you're not going to be happy with what you're launching. And there is a balancing act. Like, it's got to be viable. It's got to be good enough. But man, you cannot way too long, you'll regret it because you'll end up blowing so much money.
I do want to thank, and I'm not embarrassed to be represented by Roughhouse Brewing and mylifeinthebook.com and to be your partner. I'm embarrassed that I have a ton of posts.
and I'm not, because honestly, every episode we got some kind of shit like that going on. And usually it's at the start when we're trying to get stuff going. So it's like our Facebook, we're not even embarrassed by the first 2 minutes on Facebook anymore, because it's like, it's every week. We're just trying to post and it's taken us forever. But no, not an issue, man. This is just part of the charm of what is Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine. And that's episode 60, a huge round number for us. Not for everybody. Someone's like, we got 1,000 shows. Well, too bad for you. We got to 60, and that's ours.
All right. Well, you were just giving her today, and
always
great to see you. Great to hear from you. And this has been Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine.